It's strange how a lie, when wrapped in the right voice and a few tears, can become more powerful than the truth. My sister was always better at that than me, better at looking small, soft, sorry. And my parents? They were always ready to believe her. I don't know where to begin or how to say this in a way that doesn't sound bitter or broken, but I guess if I don't tell it now, it'll stay buried in my chest forever. This isn't some dramatic made up tale, it's just the truth. My truth. One I've carried with me quietly for years, like a stone in my pocket that gets heavier the longer I pretend it's not there. My name's Azold Murray. I'm 16. I guess you could say I'm the kind of girl who blends into the background. I don't raise my voice much. I don't interrupt. I'm the quiet one in class. The girl people forget was even in the room. It's not that I don't have anything to say. I do. I've just learned that saying it doesn't always make a difference. Not when the people who are supposed to believe you refuse to see who you really are. I've always been introspective, not shy exactly, just observant. I notice things. I pick up on tones, on glances exchanged across the dinner table, on the tightening of a jaw or the flicker of irritation in someone's eyes. I grew up learning to read the room, not because it was a useful skill, but because it was necessary. Survival in my household depended on anticipating the emotional weather, especially when you were always the one blamed for the storm. I wasn't the funny daughter, or the charming one, or the delicate, doe-eyed kind of girl who knew how to make people feel protective. That was Leora. I was the firstborn, the one who was supposed to know better, the one who was always a little too blunt, a little too quiet, a little too much trouble without meaning to be. I'm not bitter by nature, but I am tired, tired of trying to prove I'm not what they decided I was. I grew up in a house where fairness wasn't really a thing. From the outside, everything about our family looked enviable. My parents, Seraphine and Dorian, were well-groomed, articulate, the kind of couple you'd see hosting neighborhood events or speaking confidently at school functions. But what people didn't see behind the polished smiles and coordinated outfits was the hierarchy of attention and affection that quietly ruled our home. Seraphine, my mom, had a thing for control, subtle, meticulous control. She ran the house like it was a showroom. Clean lines, quiet corners, nothing out of place. But it extended beyond decor. She had expectations for how we acted, how we spoke, how we looked. Emotion was messy. Questioning her was disrespectful. And being the child who didn't match her image of proper became a daily offense. She didn't need to yell to punish you. Just one glance of icy disappointment could make you feel 2 inches tall. Her compliments were conditional, her affection rare. She believed in order over understanding. Dorian, my dad, wasn't cold like Seraphine, but he was disengaged. He buried himself in work and let my mom lead when it came to the family. His version of parenting was more about keeping things smooth and conflict-free than actually being present. He wanted peace and compliance, not truth or connection. If things looked fine on the surface, then in his mind they were. And Leora made sure they always did. For her anyway. Leora is a year younger than me, but from the moment she could talk, she figured out how to twist things. It wasn't just the big dramatic incidents, though those were plenty. It was the tiny everyday betrayals that chipped away at me. She wasn't loud or aggressive about it. No, her genius was in the performance. She'd knock over a vase and then look up with teary eyes and say softly, "I think Isol did it." She'd forget to close the fridge and let the food spoil, then whisper to Mom. I tried to remind her, but I think she forgot again. She'd scribble over one of my drawings and claim she thought it was scrap paper. She'd hide the remote, then tell Dad I was hogging the TV. Once, she told a neighbor that I didn't want to go to their kid's birthday party because I thought it would be boring, which led to a very awkward phone call and another lecture about how I embarrassed the family. I hadn't even known there was a party. Sometimes she'd use my toothbrush, get toothpaste everywhere, and then say I was the messy one. Or she'd take my last clean uniform shirt, spill juice on it, and leave me scrambling minutes before school. When I'd confront her, she'd shrug, tilt her head and say, "I just thought you'd already worn it. I didn't think you'd care." And when my parents confronted me about any of it, she'd stand nearby, hands clasped, lip quivering, the picture of reluctant heartbreak. But here's the thing about Leora. She didn't just lie. She was sweet about it. Sickeningly sweet. She had this soft voice, big watery eyes, and the uncanny ability to make herself look like the victim in every scenario. Every misdeed was wrapped in a veil of innocence. She didn't just deny her wrongdoings. She mourned them, as if she were just as disappointed in herself as everyone else must be. Every time she got caught doing something wrong, she'd come to me after with this trembling lip and whisper, "You're mad at me, aren't you? I mess everything up. I'm such a terrible sister. But you still love me, right?" She weaponized guilt like no one else I've ever met. Even I found myself comforting her sometimes. Me, the one who just got blamed, grounded, yelled at. It was like emotional whiplash. And my parents? They ate it up. They never questioned her. She just always managed to speak first, to cry first. And somehow that made her more believable. In their eyes, she was the golden child, sweet, soft-spoken, fragile. I was the one with the attitude problem, the eye rolls, the distance, and I guess that made me easier to cast as the troublemaker. At first, I tried harder. I thought if I was better, nicer, quieter, more obedient, they'd see I wasn't the villain, but the more I faded into the background, the more invisible I became. Eventually, I stopped trying, and that's when things got worse. By middle school, Leora had turned lying into an art. She'd stir up drama at school and pin it on me, and my parents would come down on me like I was some delinquent. I remember one time she stole our neighbor's perfume and planted it in my backpack. I got grounded for a month. Leora got a new phone. There were dozens of incidents. Leora would spill water on my homework and then sob to mom that she only meant to help me study. She accidentally deleted an essay I'd spent a week writing and told dad it was because I refused to back up my files. One time, she even borrowed my school ID and used it to skip class, knowing full well the security cameras wouldn't show her face clearly. When the school called home, she cried into the phone and said I must have given her my ID to take the blame. And once again, they believed her. Another time, she tore one of mom's silk scarves and stuffed it into my dresser drawer. I found it crumpled between my clothes, and before I could even process it, I was being called ungrateful, careless, and disrespectful. I stood there stunned while Leora hovered behind mom's shoulder, eyes downcast, fingers twisted in guilt, mouthing silently to me, "I'm sorry." Later that night, she brought me a cookie from the kitchen and said in a hushed voice, "I don't know why I do these things. You're always mad at me. I just wanted to be close to you." The thing was, part of me wanted to believe she meant it. Part of me thought, maybe she really does feel bad. Maybe she just needs help. But every time I let my guard down, she did it again, over and over, and it was always the same script. The only people who ever truly believed me were my grandparents, Marigold and Elric Winson. They lived a few neighborhoods over, and every time I visited, it felt like coming up for air. Just being in their kitchen, smelling fresh coffee and hearing the quiet hum of the radio felt like a different world entirely, one where I wasn't always on edge waiting to be blamed. They never treated me like I was crazy. They saw what was happening. They'd ask how I was with actual curiosity, not suspicion. They'd listen to my side of the story without cutting me off or glancing at each other with silent conclusions already drawn. They tried to talk to my parents more than once, but that only made things worse. My mom said they were meddling. My dad accused them of playing favorites. I remember coming home after one of those attempts and hearing Seraphine mutter, "They always did coddle her, always made excuses." Dorian didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His silence always chose sides. Eventually, even my grandparents had to step back. And that's when the weight of it all started sinking in. I'd lie in bed some nights, staring at the ceiling, just numb. Too tired to cry, too defeated to even be angry. There were nights I'd curl up under my blanket, clutching a pillow to my chest, and wish I could just disappear. Not die, just vanish. Fade out like static. I was exhausted. Exhausted from always defending myself. From trying to make them see me. From swallowing the injustice over and over until it made a permanent home in my gut. I didn't want to be the strong one anymore. I just wanted to be believed. But everything came to a head earlier this year. It started with money missing from my parents' joint bank account. About $600 just vanished overnight. That wasn't just any money. It was part of the savings they'd set aside for Leora's private school tuition. My parents had been talking about it for weeks, budgeting carefully, treating it like some sacred fund. So when the money disappeared, it wasn't just about the amount. It was betrayal, a threat to their perfectly laid plans for their golden child. My mom freaked out. She was pacing the kitchen, muttering under her breath, face flushed with panic and fury. My dad stormed from room to room, flinging open drawers, checking laptops, demanding answers. And Leora, of course, was already crying when I walked into the living room. I didn't want to say anything, she said between sniffles, her voice shaking just enough. But Isolde was using your phone last night. I think maybe she logged into the bank app. What she conveniently left out was that I had asked to borrow Dad's phone briefly to look up directions for a group art project meeting. My own phone had died, and I didn't have the address saved anywhere else. I had used the phone for less than 5 minutes, just long enough to pull up the map and confirm where I was going the next day. I never opened any banking app. I didn't even know where it was on his phone. That was all it took. No questions, no logic, no pause to even wonder why I would take money meant for my sister's education. My mom turned to me with eyes that burned like I'd slapped her. How could you do this to your own family? To your sister, she hit. And the worst part, the betrayal didn't stop at the accusation. It was in the way my mom clutched Leora to her chest, whispering that it would be okay. In the way my dad avoided looking at me as if seeing me might confirm their disappointment. In the way Leora peeked at me over my mom's shoulder with that same sad, soft expression, remorseful enough to seem sorry, not remorseful enough to stop. My dad didn't say much. He didn't need to. His disappointment was sharp and swift. You'll pay it back, he said. Every cent. Starting this weekend, you'll be doing all the house chores, yours, Leora's, and anything else we assign until it's made up for. No phone, no computer. You go to school, come home, do your work, and stay out of trouble. That's it. It was a sentence wrapped in structure, designed to keep me in the house, but still seen, still punished. I was allowed to go to school, barely, but any semblance of freedom or comfort had been revoked. My afternoons were stripped bare, replaced with endless cleaning and chores that felt less like discipline and more like a quiet form of humiliation. They even locked the Wi-Fi with a new password so I couldn't access anything outside of school hours. Every small act felt like a reminder, we don't trust you. Later that night, Leora knocked on my door and peeked in with that same little voice. I didn't mean for it to get that bad. I'm sorry you're in trouble again. You must really hate me now, huh? I would have accepted the punishment if I had actually done it. But sitting there, being falsely accused again after so many years of carrying the weight for things I never did, it broke something in me. And the worst part, the betrayal didn't stop at the accusation. It was in the way my mom clutched Leora to her chest, whispering that it would be okay. In the way my dad avoided looking at me as if seeing me might confirm their disappointment. In the way Leora peeked at me over my mom's shoulder with that same sad, soft expression, remorseful enough to seem sorry, not remorseful enough to stop. The house had fallen quiet, but not in a peaceful way. It was the kind of quiet that buzzed, heavy and sharp, like the aftermath of a storm you knew wasn't really over. I could hear my mother murmuring softly to Leora downstairs, her voice syrupy and soothing. I heard the soft clink of dishes being stacked, as if nothing monumental had just happened, as if I wasn't upstairs unraveling. And, in that moment, I felt smaller than I ever had. Not just forgotten, but erased. Like my presence had only ever been tolerated, and now it was simply easier for them to pretend I didn't exist at all. A few days later, I told Nico. Nico's this guy in my art class. Quiet, smart, kind of a tech nerd. I didn't plan on telling him. It just slipped out when he asked why I'd been drawing all those twisted, shadowy figures lately. He listened. Really listened. Then he asked if I'd ever logged into the bank account before. I told him no, but I had used my dad's phone a few times for directions. Then there's a digital trail, he said. Everything leaves a log. With his help, we logged into my dad's email from the library computer and pulled up the security activity. I remember holding my breath as Nico clicked through the menus, his fingers moving quickly but precisely, and then it was there. The withdrawal was made from an iPhone 11 with a serial number that matched Leora's phone. Same time she claimed I had done it. Same location as our house. I stared at the screen, reading the log over and over again, hoping it would change, hoping maybe I had missed something. But it didn't change. It was her. It had been her all along. I felt my heart sink, not with surprise, but with a kind of hollow confirmation. I had always suspected she was capable of this. But seeing it laid out in cold, undeniable detail shattered something inside me. There was no more room for doubt. My throat tightened. I felt sick. Betrayal isn't always sharp and immediate. Sometimes it's dull and spreading, like ink soaking through fabric. She did this. She watched me suffer, watched our parents humiliate me, and still said nothing. She didn't just lie. She let me carry it. Willingly, deliberately. It wasn't just circumstantial. It was clear as day. I sent everything to my grandparents. I didn't know what else to do. I wasn't going to bring it to my parents. They wouldn't listen. They never had. 2 nights later, my grandparents invited us all over for dinner. I knew something was up. They were too calm, too careful. There was tension simmering just beneath the surface, hidden behind Marigold's too warm smile and Elric's unusually quiet demeanor. Every clink of silverware echoed in the silence, and even Leora seemed a little too still, like she sensed something was about to shift. The meal was carefully prepared, the table perfectly set, but the air was heavy, thick with anticipation. When everyone had finished eating, Elric stood up slowly, walked over to the TV, and pulled out his laptop. His movements were deliberate, his silence weighty. "I'd like to show you something," he said, his voice steady but laced with emotion. At first, my parents rolled their eyes, clearly annoyed at what they assumed would be another of my grandparents' long-winded moral lessons. My mom crossed her arms and leaned back in her chair, lips pursed in thinly veiled irritation. "What is this about, Dad?" she asked with a forced calm. My dad sighed audibly, already bracing for what he thought was another pointless intervention. But the moment the login logs showed up on the screen, IP addresses, timestamps, device details, their expressions changed in real time. You could practically hear the sound of the truth clicking into place. My mom's face lost all its color. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her eyes darted between the screen and Leora, and for once, there was no script to fall back on. My dad just blinked, slowly, like his entire understanding of the world was beginning to fracture. Leora sat frozen, her hands limp in her lap, her eyes wide like a deer in headlights. "I didn't think you'd find that," Leora whispered, her voice barely audible. Leora's face drained of color. My mom looked like she couldn't breathe. My dad blinked, slowly, like his brain was trying to reboot. "I didn't think you'd find that," Leora whispered. That was it. No more fake tears. No more lies. What followed wasn't just a blur. It was chaos. My mom exploded first, turning to Leora with wide, stunned eyes. "How could you?" she cried. "After everything we've done for you?" My dad, usually so passive, was suddenly shouting at Leora, at my mom, at no one in particular. He demanded explanations, answers, demanded to know how long this had been going on. Leora broke down sobbing, rambling through half apologies and excuses, but for once her tears didn't shield her. My mom accused my dad of being too trusting. My dad snapped that maybe if she had listened to someone besides Leora for once, this wouldn't have happened. Grandma tried to intervene, her voice shaking as she told everyone to calm down. Grandpa stood behind her, arms crossed tightly, his mouth a thin line of restrained fury. And me? I just sat there, numb, not triumphant, not vindicated, just tired, bone-deep tired. I watched the unraveling like someone watching a movie in a language they didn't understand. After everything, years of disbelief, silence, punishment, it wasn't satisfying. It was exhausting. When my parents tried to talk to me afterward, I told them I was going to stay with my grandparents for a while. They didn't argue. Maybe they knew there was nothing they could say. But they did reach out again. A week later, they said we needed therapy, that we should heal as a family, that they'd learned their lesson. I said no. I told them they had 16 years to listen to me, and they chose not to. 16 years of brushing off every tear, every plea, every desperate attempt I made to prove I wasn't the villain they cast me as. I reminded them of all the times Leora lied and I took the fall, when she flooded the bathroom and blamed me for leaving the tap on, when she broke Mom's heirloom necklace and said I was the last one near it, when she used my email to send rude messages to a classmate and let me get suspended. Every time they looked me in the eye and chose to believe her, chose to punish me, silence me, shame me. I told them they gave Leora every benefit of the doubt, no matter how outlandish the story, and left me standing alone in the wreckage of her lies. I said I was done trying to earn love. I should have been given freely, love that wasn't conditional on whether I smiled the right way or said the right things or let myself be stepped on without protest. They said I was acting spoiled, dramatic, that I should give people a second chance. I told them I did, over and over. I'm just done giving thirds and fourths. Now I live with my grandparents. I go to school, I go to therapy. I'm learning to unlearn the shame I carried. Learning that being the scapegoat wasn't my fault, that being quiet wasn't consent. Leora texted me once. A short message. "I didn't mean to ruin things. I don't know why I do what I do." I didn't reply, because sometimes silence is the only answer that feels true. Maybe one day I'll forgive them. Maybe. But today, I'm just glad I got out. And if you're reading this and your story feels anything like mine, if you're the one always blamed, always invisible, I just want you to know you're not alone. And no, you're not crazy for walking away from the people who taught you to doubt yourself. Sometimes that's the only way back to who you really are.